Yo, it's Metaphor, back for more to kick the raw. Represent everyone's you and I verse.
What do you see
In the mirror, what do you see in the mirror? Inferior class from the past, fortify life in descent. Find out more to lies, what you find lies in tune with the mind. Tune in, movement, lion heart, find out what that spark. Define this art. You can cry till your tears are crystallized. Pineal calcified, mouth dry, motor function moving slower.
Wake up from a dream at the matrix.
The methyltryptamine, the many-faced God.
Like a cartel, on point, follow like cartel.
What do you see when you're looking at me? What do you see? What do you see? What do you see when you're looking at me? What do you see? What do you see? What do you see when you're looking at me?
Many face God, like a cartel, on point, follow like cartel. Will be a martyr, dreaming.
Thoughts staying stagnant, 4, 5, 6. Tricks hit the hips, magnet.
Eat my cheese like sea.
Keep my kids swimming down south. I'm the safe off the fed in the drought.
Americans most kind of dead. Fire make me feel like
I need a monument.
my
Monumentalist, monumental.
watch what you put in your body. Keep it clean.
No stains like brushing your teeth. Unlike fluoride in your mind, body made of water too. Damn, using Mother Earth like a prostitute. What do you see when you're looking at me? What do you see? What do you see? What do you see when you're looking at me? What do you see? What do you see? What do you see when you're looking at me?
Earth like a prostitute.
Insanity, what they institute. Robin Hood on top of heads, firefly like a candle, right? Sound body, yeah, mind peace, what they hate to see. Fuck it, even hatred free. Unlike bull, like shit, nigga, though. That's a positive. Take the time where you still babbling. Leading thee like a star from Galilee. Water walking, don't look down or around.
This my type, bro.
Levitate when she ovulate.
In between disaster. Fuck rap.
Hip hop, moving massacre. This moment, it's future in like Raven. I'm zoning, I'm the Zohan. Ha, ha.
Lowercase G-O-D.
I'm like Heracles, intellect movement. In a stream full of vixens. Monumentalist, monumental. This song called Monumental. Just put out the most recent music video for it. And things like that. So check it out on my page. And with this being said, go ahead, check the video out. This is for the newest album I'm gonna be dropping called Recreation in Progress. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. This is the moon in Gemini with the sun in Leo. So the moon in Gemini is all about feeling comfortable communicating, and the sun in Leo is feeling comfortable communicating on stage, right? So with this being said, we have the moon conjuncting Mars and Jupiter, right? So Jupiter is expansion, and Mars is passions or intentions. So feeling comfortable communicating our passions, intentions, and our expansion of that. And then moving forward, we have the moon sextile and the sun, Venus, the North Node, and Chiron, right? So with all this being said, the moon sextile and the sun is seeing the opportunity to take action and feeling comfortable communicating those actions or communicating on stage. And then with the moon sextile and Venus, right, it's going to be seeing the opportunity to value one's own personal vision and things that nature based on it being in Leo. So feeling comfortable communicating is the moon, right? And the sun and, the Venus in Leo is valuing our vision or our focus on that vision. And moving forward, we also have Aries in a bunch of energy as well. So the North Node and Chiron is both in Aries. So the moon is going to sextile the North Node. So seeing the opportunity to have our purpose be taking part in our purpose, essentially, feeling comfortable communicating our purpose or communicating this uncomfortability to achieve that purpose is the moon sextile in the North Node. And the North Node is all about one's purpose, like I say, or uncomfortability creates growth, so to speak. So it's our growth or our purpose in our individuality. So, like I say, the moon sextile in the North Node is seeing the opportunity to communicate about a purpose. And also Chiron being in Aries is the wounded healer. So the wounded healer being in Aries is our individuality. So feeling comfortable communicating what we're wounded about our individuality, or essentially being able to teach based on this wound. So moving forward, we have the moon squaring Mercury, which is in Virgo. Then we have also the moon squaring Neptune and Saturn. So the moon squaring Mercury is feeling comfortable learning about our communication style, essentially. So Gemini and Virgo kind of work hand in hand. Gemini is the extroverted Mercury, right? Extroverted side of Mercury. And Virgo is the introverted side of Mercury, or the yin side. If you want to look at it as yin and yang, the yang side of Mercury is Gemini, and the yin side of Mercury is Virgo. So, with this being said, we're feeling comfortable learning about our communication style, or learning how to structure our communication, or have this detailed communication and things of that nature. So then moving forward, the moon squaring Neptune, right, is with this being said, like I said, moon squaring Neptune is going to be learning about our dreams, illusions, and nightmares, or learning to communicate about our illusions. And then also the moon squaring Saturn, which Saturn is restriction and things of that nature. So communicating about what we're restricted about, learning to communicate about our restrictions to achieve a dream. And then moving forward, okay, we're gonna go ahead and address this one. This is this is one of my favorite comments, talking about pseudoscience. See, here's the thing: if astrology was a pseudoscience, it would be in a circumstance situation where you would talk about how the sun isn't the first science. So essentially, we're talking about science. So science, right, is based on a scientific method. So all I can tell you is based on astrology's scientific method, we do experience seasons and things of that nature. So go ahead and explain how the seasons aren't affecting us in our actual behavioral patterns, and go ahead and try to go ahead and explain how it's a pseudoscience and things of that nature based on that. You know, saying with that starting point. So yeah, moving forward, the like I say, moon is also trining Pluto, right? So moon trining Pluto, moon trining Pluto is essentially the trine being a gift, right, or a 120-degree angle. It's because people think they funny. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to the star, I'm saying, individual in the chat. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to everybody in the chat. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to go ahead and shout out to people in the chat. You know what I'm saying? Shout out Sharon Smith. Shout out K Queen. Shout out Bob. Shout out Steffi129. Yeah, so I'm saying, with all that being said, shout out to, what's the homie name? Shout out to Mystic Mermaid. You know what I'm saying? I know she's gonna be peeping this joint later, saying things of that nature. Shout out Bliss. But yeah, moving forward, like I said, moon trining Pluto is seeing the gift to enact our deep change and things of that nature, or feeling comfortable communicating about change, which is our association. And Pluto being in Aquarius is essentially changing our associate, or changing our way of being in that scientific way, because Aquarius is like the scientist. So you're saying we're essentially feeling comfortable on the higher octave with the moon in Gemini, communicating our deep change, or thinking about change and actually enacting that and feeling comfortable with that. Or on the lower octave, you feel uncomfortable with change, you just want to stay stagnant, so to speak. So with all this being said, we're going to go ahead and get into the rising signs. And I'm going to start with Gemini, based on the moon being in Gemini. So Gemini in the first house, rising and ascendant, is talking about personal affairs. So shout out to Blake X. Shout out to your homie Nick, you know what I'm saying? And then with this being said, on the higher octave, you feel comfortable communicating about your personal affairs, or talking about your personal affairs. Or on the lower octave, you feel uncomfortable with your personal affairs, your individuality. So essentially, that's how I like to break down the first house. Either you feel comfortable being yourself, or you feel uncomfortable being yourself in the lower octave. So essentially, you just got to accept yourself and accept what's on your mind at this point in time, and go ahead and speak your mind. And keep in mind, though, as well, this is a waning part of the saying moon cycle. So essentially, at this point in time, we're shedding, you know what I'm saying, based on Gemini in the first house, maybe certain personal affairs, or talking about certain personal affairs that are non-beneficial. Moving forward, the Taurus rising is having the second house being in Gemini. And keep in mind, the second house is all about values of a person, place, thing, or idea. So you're essentially talking about your values, who you value in people, you know what I'm saying? Or the people you value, talking about the places you value. I'm saying people, places, yeah, talking about the things you value as well. It could be like at this point in time, you're also thinking about the things you value based on it being Gemini energy. So, like, say you value hearing a certain speaker, maybe you at work and you want to hear a certain speaker, you know what I'm saying, speak on a certain topic. At this point in time, you're going to value that thing that allows you to hear, you know what I'm saying, like a headphone or for something like that, for example, to listen to somebody while they go ahead and, you know what I'm saying, talk and they talk, you know what I'm saying, and you value that kind of communication style. And on the higher octave, you feel comfortable talking about those values. Or on the lower octave, you feel uncomfortable talking about your value system or talking about how you make money. Or also, I'm saying, keep in mind the second house is also making money. So talking to individuals that you make money around and things like that, that's on the higher octave. Or you feel uncomfortable with that. So essentially, you need to find better things to talk about that everyone values, you know what I'm saying, things of that nature to actually benefit. Moving forward, the Aries rising is having the third house being in Gemini, right? And the Aries in the third house is having that sextile alignment, that 60-degree angle. So essentially, Aries is feeling comfortable communicating with an environment or those in the environment on the higher octave, and in turn, it's benefiting you. Or on the lower octave, you essentially have to shed who you're communicating with in your environment. And in previous circumstances, you may have felt comfortable communicating with them at that point in time. But now, you know what I'm saying, we're in this waning cycle based on the, you know what I'm saying, the moon in Gemini, sun in Leo, where you're communicating about, but you might actually feel comfortable taking action in that expression. So essentially, or in that environment, taking action. So essentially, you may need to shed this certain communication style with these others and other individuals in the environment at this point in time. Then moving forward, the Pisces rising is having the fourth house being in Gemini, and the fourth house for Pisces is a square. So essentially, the Pisces is learning to talk about talk about their privacy or what's close to their heart. And essentially, Pisces likes to be more behind the scenes and kind of keep to themselves and adapt to the environment and adapt to the circumstance situations that they're in. They may not actually want to speak their mind. So essentially, you're learning to speak your mind about what's privately on your heart, so to speak, on that higher octave. Or on the lower octave, you kind of want to be complacent and keep to yourself. So essentially, these individuals don't actually make you feel comfortable talking about your private circumstance situations. So essentially, you can't confide in them. Essentially, you need to shed these individuals to then, in turn, feel more comfortable confiding in individuals that can actually benefit you. So yeah, moving forward, the Aquarius rising is having the fifth house in Gemini, right? And the fifth house is all about your expression. And you know what I'm saying, with all this being said, you're talking about your expressions or talking to express yourself, you know what I'm saying, and things like that. So on the higher octave, you feel comfortable expressing yourself and talking. Or on the lower octave, Aquarius just wants to keep to themselves and just be that scientist and kind of like test the water, so to speak. So essentially, this expression that's non-beneficial, you either need to shed it on the lower octave, or on the higher octave, you're seeing, okay, I actually feel comfortable with this expression, and I'm going to talk about it, talk my talk. And keep in mind, Aquarius, you're the individual that's like generally like the narrator. So if you don't speak your mind, nobody will speak it for you. So you got to go ahead and talk your talk real quick, you know what I'm saying, before you don't have the opportunity to, based on you having this trine as a gift. So essentially, you're having the gift to talk about things and things like that. And moving forward, the Capricorn rising is having the sixth house being in Gemini, and the sixth house is all about your work, your routine, and patterns. So essentially, you're talking about work or your routine, and you're talking with individuals, and you may misunderstand, like, okay, this is how this worked in my previous circumstance situation, but how does it work now at this point in time? And I'm saying, if you're not able to actually communicate efficiently, and the Capricorn can't adapt and things like that, then they're going to be in that lower octave. So essentially, you want to be able to adapt to the actual routine and pattern that's necessary to make things work. You might need to shed a certain communication style that was beneficial in the past, but is non-beneficial now, essentially. Then moving forward, the Sagittarius rising is having the Gemini in the seventh house, and Gemini in the seventh house for Sagittarius is essentially communicating in relationships, or you feel comfortable communicating in your relationship on the higher octave, and then they make you feel comfortable, you know what I'm saying, traveling anywhere in your mind. You can go ahead and speak your mind about anything on the higher octave. Or on that lower octave, you feel uncomfortable communicating, and you're like, oh, dang, this feels like I'm walking on eggshells whenever I speak, and things like that. I don't want to hurt nobody's feelings, just to have this relationship, you know what I'm saying, have this ship float on the water, you know what I'm saying, float on the water like a rod boat and keep on, you know what I'm saying, floating and go ahead and make it to our destination. So essentially, on the higher octave, you feel comfortable communicating and communicating freely, being Sagittarius. Or on the lower octave, you feel uncomfortable and you feel like you're in a cage, so to speak, in your relationship, and you can't actually communicate freely about what's on your mind. Gemini. Then moving forward, the Scorpio rising is having the eighth house being in Gemini, and the eighth house is all about rebirth, transformation, and behind the scenes circumstances. So essentially, you're talking about your rebirth or talking about what's going on behind the scenes and you're transforming. And the Scorpio may misunderstand because at this point in time, it's a 150-degree angle for the Scorpio. So they're in a circumstance situation where the Scorpio likes to do things behind the scenes and have their own internal passion about what they got going on. But at this point in time, you're in a circumstance situation where everybody's feeling comfortable communicating. You may not exactly feel comfortable communicating because you like to keep things behind the scenes, so to speak, personally. And that's a simple misunderstanding. So essentially, if you're on the higher octave, you feel comfortable confiding in individuals that you're, like I'm saying, talking about your transformations that you're going through, your rebirth, and how you want to become a phoenix, I'm saying, and things like that, and how you want to essentially enact this new moon in Leo. And at this point in time, like you're talking about, okay, I'm shedding these certain things, I'm transforming myself, and that's on the higher octave, or you feel uncomfortable confiding, so to speak, in the lower octave. Necesitas más entrenar en español. Lo siento, señor David Batista. You know what I'm saying? Gracias, gracias. You know what I'm saying? I was just pretty much saying in Spanish, like, I need to train more in Spanish to actually go ahead and break down that the message and things like that. I know that moon is luna in español or Spanish, but you know what I'm saying, I'm gonna need some more work on it to actually translate the video properly for y'all. You know what I'm saying? So gracias para Latinos. And that's pretty much, I'm just saying thank you for all my Latin individuals watching. Sí, bien, bien. And moving forward, we have Libra rising, which is in the having Gemini in the ninth house, which is a trine for the Libra, right? And the Gemini in the ninth house is all about talking about your experiences or your morality, so to speak. So you're going to have the gift to relate to individuals and talk about your experience at this point in time on the higher octave, and you're feeling comfortable with that. Or on the lower octave, you're having the gift to like kind of walk on eggshells and see like, oh, dag, this certain experience is unrelatable, and at this point in time, I don't actually want to speak my mind, so it'll make people feel uncomfortable. So essentially, you want to be around individuals that have like-minded, alike experiences. And moving forward, the Virgo rising is having the 10th house, being in Gemini, and the 10th house for, the 10th house compared to the first house is a square. It's pretty much what I'm trying to get at. And with this being said, Virgo's going to have to learn to communicate a status at this point in time or feel comfortable communicating their status. And Virgo likes to be so upright and be in a space that they're always kind of perfect, so to speak. So at this point in time, you may feel kind of like a pressure to communicate and speak freely about what's on your mind at this point in time or communicate that status. So essentially on the higher octave, you feel comfortable communicating about your status or your career, or you feel uncomfortable communicating about your status or career because this is not exactly where you want it to be at, so to speak. So you may have to learn like, okay, what could I actually talk about to benefit oneself, to put myself in that higher octave and feel comfortable communicating my status? Or what certain aspect of my status is beneficial for oneself at this point in time. Then moving forward, the Leo rising is having the 11th house being in Gemini. And the 11th house for Leo, like I say, is Gemini. So it's essentially seeing the opportunity to talk amongst associates or talk about your associations. And you feel comfortable talking about talking in a group at the higher octave, or you feel uncomfortable talking in that group at this point in time, because whenever you speak your mind, you're kind of like isolated, so to speak, and in that 11th house space where it's to a point like, yeah, these are my associations and these are my associates, but they're not actually in my 7th house. That I don't actually feel like I want to be in a relationship with these individuals and continually relate. My apologies. And pretty much with this being said, to put yourself on the higher octave, you want to put yourself in a circumstance situation where you feel comfortable talking about your associates, or just go ahead and speak your mind, because these are just associations at this point in time. And moving forward, last but not least, the Cancer rising is having the 12th house being in Gemini, right? And with this being said, you're essentially talking about your dreams. And with pretty much just like if you feel comfortable talking about your dreams around the higher octave, or you have no dream at all and you feel uncomfortable at this point in time, that'll put you on that lower octave. So essentially, no matter what illusion that you're in, you want to, I'm saying, talk about that. So then in turn, you could, in turn, see the opportunity what to then value about those actions that you're talking about at this point in time to benefit oneself, or like how to achieve your dream, so to speak. So like to put it all in a nutshell, like I say, the moon in Gemini and the sun in Leo, but it being in this waning circumstance situation, you want to shed whatever communication style is non-beneficial to the stage at this point in time. And like I say in every video, you know what I'm saying, peace and love if you believe in all that. You know what I'm saying, support the movement you need to be in tune with. You know what I'm saying, go ahead and check the description for all my links and circumstance situations. You can go ahead and tap in with me. You know what I'm saying, so like I say, peace and love if you believe in all that, and holla back at me. You dig? I'll be back for the moon in Cancer.